We are so pleased to welcome the founder of Sweet Vegan. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Sweet Vegan website, I encourage you to check it out. The link was in the confirmation email you received this afternoon. So founder of Sweet Vegan, Chef Andrea Young, is with us to share an original recipe that she created. Chef Andrea began her adventure with cooking growing up in Indiana and subsequently made her way to New York. Sweet Vegan was born as a culmination of her career in design as an interior architect and becoming a vegan chef. So sit back, relax, or if you're cooking along, don't relax too much, but have fun making these Blueberry Bliss chocolates. And I want to encourage you to pose any questions you have in the chat or in the Q&A box. And as well, stick around to the end because we will be raffling off a gift card at the end. So thanks so much, Andrea. I'll hand it over to you. And you, hang on, let's unmute you. Great.
My name is Andrea Young. I am a vegan chef and the founder of Sweet Vegan. This class is going to be an interactive demo class, and together we're going to be making my infamous Blueberry Bliss chocolates. So thank you so much for joining me. And before we get officially into the recipe, I'm going to share with you that this is going to be an introductory class. We're going to cover a lot of ground and a whole lot of different subjects. So please feel free to follow along with a copy of your recipe for Blueberry Bliss chocolates. And if you need a copy, please email me and I'm happy to send you one. My email is Andrea Young, AndreaYoung111 @gmail.com. And please do put your questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the class. Now I have a question for all of you this evening. How many of you will be actually making the recipe along with me? If you are, will you please respond in the chat now with the word yes? That would be very helpful. Okay, so I'd like to say a very special thank you tonight to Veg Northwest and in particular Jacqueline Leeds for the warm introduction and making me feel right at home. I so appreciate and love Northwest Veg's philosophy, their outreach, and most importantly, how they give back to the community, always with a plant-based viewpoint with events like Sweet Vegan Chocolates. So thank you, thank you. The other shout out belongs to none other the dynamic duo, Karen and Erica Dobochuk. They are my interns. They are high school students at Bronx Compass, and they are the recipients of my internship program, which is WIW, and that stands for Women Inspiring Women. So thank you, thank you. So now I'd love to share with you a little bit about what our class is going to be like in some of the steps, and also a little bit of the overview of making our Sweet Vegan Blueberry Bliss chocolates this evening. So you can see right over here, these are our Blueberry Bliss chocolates that we're going to be making. And there's a blueberry covered chocolate right here. And you can see a coconut topping. And over here on the other side is our red raspberry topping. So underneath these beautiful toppings are a beautiful ganache. And we're going to learn how to make a ganache this evening. And inside the chocolate, underneath the ganache, is a very special surprise. And that is a fresh blueberry that's been dipped in tempered chocolate. So we're going to learn all about combining the ganache with our blueberries and covering them in our beautiful toppings that you see here. So this is going to be a whirlwind tour of learning all about chocolate. So stay tuned and fasten your seatbelts because we're about to begin on our chocolate making. So now I'd like to ask and share with you what exactly is a ganache? Well, ganache is a French word, and it's a French word which is for a creamy chocolate interior filling, and it's used with chocolate and made with cream and chocolate and used in confections such as our chocolate truffles. And that's exactly what we're going to be making tonight is a chocolate truffle. And the great news is our chocolate truffles are all plant-based. So we're going to learn how to make a plant-based truffle with only 5 simple, easy ingredients. So come on into my kitchen and let's start cooking. Okay, so I like to use these little saucepans, and this is a saucepan from Cuisinart, and a little spoon, like something with a scoop on it so we can stir easily. And I'm going to introduce you to our ingredients that will make this amazing ganache. So the first thing we're going to be putting in our ganache is a dry ingredient of sea salt, and we only need to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of sea salt. So we're going to put this right in here right now. The next ingredient in our dried ingredients is going to be 2 teaspoons of our coconut sugar. And now we're going to start with our liquid ingredient, which is our rice milk. And you could certainly use almond milk or coconut milk if you choose. I like to use rice milk because it doesn't overtake and overpower the chocolate filling and the flavors. So 1/4 cup rice milk, and be sure and stir it up really well when you pour it into your container and pour it into your saucepan. And the last ingredient that we'll be using is only 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil. And again, I like to use organic wherever possible. And you might see I have some blue hands in front of you. I highly recommend that you use some sort of a latex glove because chocolate can certainly get very messy. So now we're going to stir this up very gently. And before we put it onto the stove, we are going to introduce the star of this evening, which is our amazing chocolate. So I love working with chocolate. And the chocolate tonight, I'm going to show you what it looks like. It is a little Calais or a coin, and this is about a 66 to 70% dark chocolate. It's your choice. And I love putting the chocolate, 3/4 of a cup, in a container that looks just like this. This is a little container from a company called OXO, OXO. They make great quality kitchen equipment. So this is a little tidbit if you want to write this down in the notes. And one of the great things is it comes with 3 different measuring, milliliters, cups, and ounces. It's flexible. You can put it on the stove, and guess what? It can go right into the microwave, and it's got a little pour spout. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take our 3/4 cup of our chocolate, and we're going to be putting it in our microwave for just about 1.5 minutes. So while that goes to the stove, we're going to go in the microwave. We're going to go to the stove and turn our burners on. And get this heated up. And you're going to want to stay with this. You're not going to want to leave the fire too high, and you're certainly not going to want to stop stirring it. You want to keep this tended to at all times. And while I'm stirring this up, there's great aroma coming from this. It's a very caramel aroma. And we're going to bring this to a very slight simmer so it's heated up but not to a full boil. And I have a trivia question for you this evening. So our first of several coming up, and that is, who consumes more chocolate? Is it men or women? So I'll let you think about that. And while this is heating up, you can see we're starting to get maybe some little bubbles around the edge. which is exactly what we want, without, of course, bringing it to a full boil. So again, our first question for the evening, who consumes more chocolate? Is it men or women? Well, if you guessed women, you would be 100% correct. It is absolutely women. They consume twice as much chocolate as men. And I certainly fit into that category. It's one of my favorite desserts and treats. So we just heard the beep in the background. So that means we're ready to now go ahead and bring this over to the countertop and then mix this in with our chocolate. So we have like this is a little heated up pad. And then let's get our chocolate out. And let me show you what it looks like. It's nice and heated in there, right? So, and what we're going to do is pour our liquid ingredients right in here. There's like a little sizzle when we do that. And let's make sure we scrape everything out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mix this up. And you want to really stir it all the way into the bottom. Make sure nothing's left. And you can see it sort of changing right in front of your eyes because it's becoming from a liquid to becoming more of a solid, a liquid that's more of like a viscous liquid, which is the chocolate blended into it. And I'm going to show you how that actually looks. A couple little lumps, so we're going to really whip through that. Now it's perfectly smooth and silky, and you want to reach into the bottom, scrape it really good. And when you have it really well mixed, which only takes a few seconds, then where the pour spout is on your little OXO or your measuring cup, you're going to now put this and pour this into a container. And let me just show you what it looks like. This is just an inexpensive Tupperware container. It's got, it's maybe about 6 inches by about 9 inches and about 2 inches high. And it should come with a lid. So we're going to pour this into our container. And I like to really sort of move it around as we're pouring. So we get an even coat, just makes it a little bit easier. And this will make between 12 and 15 chocolates. Okay, so I think we've got this pretty well cleaned out. You want to make sure you get everything you can. Great. And you're just going to smooth it around and get it nice and even. And then just tap it a little bit so it's nice and flat. And then just take your lid, and if you're making this to eat with live, you're going to just cover it with a little saran wrap and put it in your freezer. But we would be putting this into our refrigerator now, and it would take about 3 hours to actually make. So in the fridge it goes. And then our next step will be to start some of our prep. So what I'd like to do now is take our blueberries. And I always love to use organic blueberries. And I usually take about a cup and I wash them really nicely. That's what I would suggest at this point. And then you're going to just pat them dry. Or if you make these in the morning and just let them air dry, by the afternoon they'll be ready to add to your ganache. So we've already done that. So this process is really completely done. We're going to put them off to the side as our inspiration. Now our next step for prepping is to really put our toppings together that you saw that are on the coatings of our ganaches. So I love to work with coconut.
And my favorite company that I like to work with is Bob's Bread Mill. It's a shredded coconut and it's unsweetened, which is what I particularly like to use. And the best part is it's the perfect size. I'm going to show you. So it's a very small particle, and you want something that's small because our ganaches are not that big when we make them. So you want to have a small particle of coconut that covers them, which is a really nice part of it. And then for red raspberry and blueberries, I like a company called nuts.com. You may have your own ideas and places to get things, but this is a great company that will deliver and ship right to your door. So it's very convenient. And they make all kinds of different toppings and flavorings. So I just chose raspberry and blueberry, but they have blackberry and strawberry and many other things as well. Now they come in a whole freeze-dried fruit. So what I have to do next is I have to take my mortar and pestle and actually break it down in size. So it's going to be more this size, like more of a particle. So that's what we would do next, is to take the mortar and pestle and actually make our red raspberry flakes. So here we have, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So these are more of a whole size. And I'm just going to take and just crunch these up. And you can do that beforehand as well. And the great thing about making these toppings, you can use them on other things as well. They go great on a granola breakfast cereal, perhaps, or maybe if you're making some oatmeal, this would be a nice little topping to add to it. Now, these are all unsweetened. Now, if you prefer a little sweeter variety, you could certainly add some coconut sugar right now. And then you would add it at this point so that you would actually have it added in, and then you could crush it up as well. So what I recommend is just taking a little time and cutting these and chopping these into some pieces and mincing them. So that's something that you would do right now, and you could do it in advance if you wanted to make these and assemble them later on so they're already done. And then you could add these to your container, which is our red raspberries straight ahead. So we'll just add these right here. So now we have, you would do the same for your blueberries and same for your any other toppings that you would be making as well. So now that we have our toppings made, I think the next step is to really start thinking about making our tempering and doing our blueberries. So people ask me frequently, why in the world do you need to temper your chocolate? What's the point of that? Well, I tell people tempering is really all about the balance of making your chocolates perfect and making them look beautiful. So tempering is a process in which the crystals in the cocoa butter are rearranged in a very specific pattern, giving the chocolate a very smooth and shiny finish. So when I say chocolate making is part art and part science, we just went through the science part. So now I'm going to share with you all about our process of successful tempering and less successful tempering. So in my little blue glove right here, I'm going to show you a chocolate that I have tempered and less successfully tempered. So you can see the chocolate on the left is much more desirable to enjoy and to consume, whereas the chocolate on the right, obviously the cocoa butter and the crystals have broken down. So you can see what's known as bloom, and that's when it separates, and it's called streaking and bloom, and you'll get these almost like little pit holes in your chocolate. So everybody, of course, wants to have the chocolate on the left, and that's my goal always. But in this recipe tonight, in learning our tempering process, since it's an introductory class, you do not need to worry if your blueberries come out with a perfect tempered chocolate, because guess what? They're all going to be covered with our beautiful ganache, which would be in our refrigerator or our freezer right now, getting nice and cold and ready to use. So now let's go into the steps of actually tempering some chocolate. And we'll go through the steps so you'll learn more about it yourself. So I like to use the same chocolate that we used earlier in our ganache making. This is about 3/4 to a cup of chocolate, and it's the same 60 6 to 70% dark chocolate. But the difference is this chocolate is, unlike a lot of chocolates that are out there, made with no butter fats or any milk fats, is what I should say. So there's no dairy in this. So it requires a higher point to bring our chocolates to in order to get it down to our tempering zone. So let's go over to the stove now where I explain more about the tempering process. So here we have our chocolate, and we're going to put it in a little water bath. We've already started. And I started it so we can sort of speed up the process. But we're going to put this right in our bowl right into our saucepan, and we're going to let it heat up just like this. And while it's heating up, I'm going to ask you a trivia question for this evening. Our second trivia question is, what continent produces the most cacao? So while you're doing that, I'm going to explain a little bit more of the tempering process. So I started to explain to you this chocolate has no dairy in it. So in order to bring it to the range that it needs to go to, we're going to take our thermometer, which is a true temp thermometer, and we're going to turn it on. And when it melts, we're going to test the degree of heat. And our goal is to bring this chocolate up to 114 degrees. And that is the point where it breaks down the crystals in the cocoa butter. And then when it gets to that temperature and breaks down the crystals, we take it off the stove and we bring it into the tempering zone, which is for this chocolate about 66 to 68 degrees. So it may sound complicated, but it's really, really not. So I think you might have an answer for me in the chat. And you can see our chocolate's beginning to melt, which is perfect. And I'm going to share the question and ask you for an answer. So the question again, which continent produces the most cacao? Okay, so if you guessed South America, you would be totally incorrect. It is not South America. The answer is actually Africa. Africa is the #1 continent in the world for chocolate cacao production. So you probably have my next question already lined up in your mind. Of course, what are the countries in Africa where the most production takes place? And I'll give you a hint. The top 5 countries, 4 of them are all in Africa. Okay, you can see this is melting very nicely. And you can see that it's really, really a beautiful, beautiful chocolate. I love the smell of chocolate when it's melting. So now, while you're answering that question, let me grab my thermometer and check out and see what temperature we're now at. Okay, we have a little further to go, but we're getting there. And the aroma from this chocolate is absolutely delicious. So fragrant. Okay, so hopefully you've got some answers for me. And the question again is, which countries in Africa produce the most cacao? Okay, question, answer. Out of the top 5 countries, #1 in the world is Ivory Coast. #2 is beautiful Ghana. #3 is not in Africa, so we'll come back to that one. #4 is Cameroon. And #5 is Nigeria. So those are our 4 out of 5 countries. Now for the bonus question this evening, what is the third country that produces the most cacao? So I'll let you ponder on that one while I do another temperature check and see how beautiful this is. The aroma is so fabulous right now in this kitchen. Okay, we are very close to being right on spot for 114 degrees. So the answer to our last question, what's our third country that produces the most cacao? If you answered Indonesia, you would be totally correct. Beautiful Indonesia, small island country, the third world's largest producer. An amazing story. And if I was here and sharing with you right now some chocolate from both the Ivory Coast and from Indonesia, you would be able to tell quite a bit of difference in the flavor profiles. And I'm going to share with you why that might be. The answer is very simply how the soil, the composition of the soil in both countries, the rainfall has an effect, and of course, when it's harvested. So I'm so excited to share with you that every single day there's a new discovery I make about chocolate. It's such a wonderful thing to eat, and it's an amazing thing to make. So I'm so glad you're sharing this experience with me. And our chocolate is now ready to take off of the stove. And we're going to take a wonderful little hot pad here and grab this on the edge and bring it over to our countertop and start the next process. And you can see how hot that is right now. And the next step is to take this chocolate from 114 degrees, and we really want to whip it and bring that temperature down to about 88 degrees. And we'll use our thermometer to do that. And the best way to do it is to take what's known as seed chocolate. And that's what this is right here. This is some seed chocolate. Again, it's our regular chocolate that we've used throughout the evening. And we're just going to put it right in the middle. And we're going to be starting to stir this and let it nicely melt, and keep aerating it by bringing it around and allowing the chocolate to get cooled off. So you want to keep stirring it and bringing it around the edges and bringing it back into the center. And while we're doing that, I'm going to check my thermometer and I have another trivia question for you. This one is going to be a question that's multiple choice. So the question is, how many people in the world on a daily basis consume chocolate and absolutely love it? Is it A, 1,000 people, B, 100,000 people, C, 1 million people, or D, 1 billion people every day that consume chocolate? So while you're thinking about that, I've just checked our thermometer and we have a ways to go. I'm bringing that temperature down. So I'm going to do some more stirring. And do you have an answer for me? Again, how many people worldwide consume and love chocolate on a daily basis? Is it A, 1,000 people, B, 100,000 people, C, 1 million people, or D, 1 billion people daily consume chocolate and love it? Well, if you answered D, 1 billion people, you would be totally correct. It seems like a large number, but people love chocolate, and it's the #1 gift to give to people, and it's also in the top 10 gifts to receive. So by you making these chocolates tonight and giving them to your family and loved ones, you are doing an amazing gift to yourself and to your family and friends. And of course, it's just an amazing treat to enjoy as well. So now let's check our chocolate. And I've got another trivia question for you. This question is, how many cocoa beans does it take to make 1 pound of chocolate? So the possible answers are A, 200, B, 400 beans, C, 600 beans, or D, 800 beans. Okay, so you'll think about that. I'm going to check our thermometer again, see how we're doing. Okay, we are getting close. Okay, do you have an answer for me? I hope so. Again, just a recap of this question. How many cocoa beans does it take to make 1 pound of this amazing chocolate? Is it A, 200 beans, B, 400 beans, C, 600 beans, or D, 800 beans? So if you answered B, 400 beans, you would be absolutely, totally correct. It is 400 beans, which may seem like a lot. So, but I happen to adore every one of these cocoa beans that goes into these chocolates. They're so amazing. So our chocolate is now in temper. I can tell by the consistency, the heat of the bowl, and also my last thermometer check was always a good true test. So now we've got our chocolate in temper. We're going to take our beautiful washed blueberries, and one by one, we're going to put them in the center of our chocolate, and we are going to coat them with this amazing tempered chocolate and put them onto our tray on the left. So let me show you what I've set up over here. So I like to really set up like a little cutting board, you can see, or you can certainly use just a plate and use the most important thing, parchment paper, so that your blueberries don't stick to your countertop or whatever surface you're using. I also like to use this little fancy fork. Now, you don't have to use something that's this fancy. You can just use a regular fork that you would have in your kitchen. And then you probably have one of these, like a little spatula knife that's usually used for many times doing a little bit of an icing on a cake. So these are the 2 little implements that I will use tonight, and you can select the ones that you want to use yourself. And what I'm going to do now is take our blueberries and one by one, put them into our chocolate. Okay, so here we have a beautiful blueberry. Right in the middle it goes. And I'm going to show you. You want to just dip it and coat it lovely with this chocolate. And hopefully you don't lose your blueberry like I was doing. And you'll take your knife to just help it on. And then you might want to need to tap the side of the bowl. This one looks pretty good. And then just guide it back over here and put it right on our parchment paper. And then we do another one. I try to get all about the same size blueberries. That way, when you're making your final product, they're all about the same size, just for display. Then you'll just help it onto the fork like that. Tap, a little bit of it drips, just clean it off and bring it right over here next to its neighbor, just like that. And now our third one, right in the center. And again, just swirl it around, get it nice and coated with our chocolate. Put it onto the fork. And then just guide it over here next to the other one. And you would continue this and do all of the chocolates that you've got. Now, again, if for some reason you discover that your chocolate is not drying quite as fast as you might like, my suggestion would be to put them in the refrigerator. And that way you will be able to get them to cool and be more available for you faster. So we've already taken some of our blueberries and dipped them into some chocolate earlier today. And here they are. So I have them in different sizes, but obviously the ones that are more even in size probably will work best for our chocolates. So now that these are ready, I'm going to go and take our ganache out of the refrigerator and see how it's doing. So that'll be our next step, is to take our ganache, which is right here, and we're going to take our lid off and take a peek. And you can see that it is shiny and bright and has a nice, even, smooth coat. So this is a perfect ganache. And now what I like to do is take our ganache and just put it front and center. And I love to use what's known as a little fruit scoop. This is great for when you want to do cantaloupes for the summer, or watermelon, or honeydew. So this is perfect to use for something like your ganache. But of course, if you don't have one of these, no problem. You can just use a spoon, and it would be like, probably like about a tablespoon would be perfect. So you're going to take this and just scoop it out like this. And you're going to want a nice size in your hand, in your spoon, and then you're going to put it right in your hand over here, just like that. Okay, and so what you want to do is you want to heat this up in your other hand. So that's why it's so important to be wearing your gloves. So you're going to roll it in your hand and let it melt a little bit, like that. You're going to take your thumb, just like this, and flatten it out, just like this. And then you're going to take a blueberry. And I'm going to use a small one for demonstration purposes. Goes right in the middle, like that. And then you're going to fold up the edges, like so, and create a wonderful, beautiful ganache ball. Roll it in your hands again. And what you're going to do now is take this and put it right into your coconut flake. I like to start with a light one first. So there you go. And with my two clean fingers, hopefully they're still clean, you're going to take your coconut and you're going to cover your ganache. And it should be a little heated up, so it'll have a little bit of an oily texture, which just means a little bit of the coconut oil has come out, which means that the coconut should adhere to it very nicely. And you can see it is. So just roll it around. And then after that's completed and you have a nice coat on it, you're going to add it onto your tray for your display, just like so. So we're going to put it right over here. And let's make another one. So the next one we're going to make is going to go into our red raspberry. Because again, we start with our lighter one and we work our way over to our blueberry, which is our darkest one. So here we have, and I'm using a little bit more than a tablespoon, but you'll see what you need based on the size of the blueberry you've got. So we're rolling it up, we're heating it in our hand, and then we're going to take the thumb and really flatten it out. And if at any time your ganache seems a little bit, oily, you can easily just put it right back into the refrigerator or the freezer for a few minutes so that it basically can harden, because that's what happens a little bit. It can sometimes, the oil can separate just a little bit. Okay, so here we have, going right into the red raspberry. And with my clean fingers, and you might want to have a little paper towel at hand to make sure your fingers do remain clean. You're going to take, again, the red raspberry flakes, Isn't that fun? If you have nieces and nephews or someone special, this is a great little thing to share. And you coat it beautifully. It gets nice and thoroughly coated. Okay. And just even it out. If it looks like it's got a little lump here or there, just make sure it's nice and smooth so it makes a nice round ball. Okay, there you have it. And we're going to add it right next to our coconut one. Now, let's make a blueberry one. Okay. So we're going to take a scoop. And in the hand it goes. Add a little bit more to this one. There we go. Again, we're making our little round ball. We're going to be flattening it out. So it looks kind of like this when it's done. And we're going to add our blueberry in the center, of course. And then just cover it right on up. Okay, now we're going to put this into our blueberry flake. Okay, and let's take our blueberries and cover this ganache with our blueberries. It's looking so beautiful. And again, if it's a little uneven on the side, just even it up with your fingers so you've got a nice round ball like this. And let's add it next to our coconut on the other side. There you go. So now you have 3 of them totally done, and you'll complete all the others, of course. And what I'm going to invite you to do now is to answer my last trivia question while I clean up a little bit. And that trivia question is, how many blueberries, or how many in a cup of blueberries are the calories that you're going to need? So I'm going to show you a cup right now of the blueberries. So in this cup of blueberries, about how many calories would you guess are in here? And when I come back, I'm going to share with you some of the amazing benefits of eating blueberries every day in your diet. They're such an amazing gift. So I'll clean up a bit. You can look at the recipe and think about our blueberries. Okay, so do you have a little answer for me for blueberries? Because blueberries are one of my favorite fruits in the entire world. And in this cup, there's only 80 calories, believe it or not. And those 80 calories are full of fiber, antioxidants, and of course, 25% of your daily requirements for vitamin C. So I encourage you to put blueberries in every chance you get. And of course, now that you know how to make your own Blueberry Bliss chocolates, you can make them in your chocolates and share them with your family and loved ones. So now, let me show you how you can put together a really beautiful display to give to people and also to make for yourself. Okay, so come right over here, and what we showed you earlier, you can make these by just adding 1 individual chocolate in each cello and tying with a beautiful ribbon. And I happen to love red and purple. It's such a nice combination. So these make a great snack, and you can certainly put them in your refrigerator. And I would recommend that after you make them, because there's blueberries fresh inside, you keep them always refrigerated and consume them within about 48 hours. Now, if you're more adventurous and you'd like to make something a little more interesting, you could certainly make a little display like this. And here we have an arrangement with fresh blueberries in the middle, and then we have 1 ring of our chocolate with our coconut, and then we have our blackberry or blueberry covered chocolates, and of course, our raspberry treats. And then everything is adorned with raspberries and fresh blueberries. So I encourage you to have fun making this recipe, come up with your own variations, and of course, share the love of chocolate. It's one of the great things in the world. It's such an amazing thing to make and to share. So I thank you so much for joining me here this evening. And there might be some questions. And I think we also have an amazing giveaway to give to someone. So Jacqueline, are
Yeah.
there any questions I might be able to share with people?
We do have several questions that came up. So I'll start with the ones that were asked in the chat. Does toward the beginning of the demo, does the fat content matter in the milk?
Actually, in the rice milk, I don't really think, as long as you're using a rice milk that's, organic rice milk, I think you should be okay. I think it's important that you use a rice milk versus a soy milk or a nut milk, only because I think the flavoring can be a little bit off when you use the other more flavorful milks. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome, thank you. A couple questions from after you've made them. Do they need to be refrigerated, and can you freeze them?
That's two good questions. And the answer to the first one is absolutely yes. They should always be refrigerated because you are making and using fresh fruit. So you should consume them within a timely manner because of that. I've never had a problem with them lasting too long in my own house, but I would say within a few days you would want to consume them and enjoy them. And I've actually never tried to freeze them. So that's a great question and an opportunity to discover. So I would take a few from a batch that I make and actually stick them in a freezer bag and see how long they might last. I would take them out at certain points and see how they last. I'm sure that they will last for a little bit longer than in a refrigerator, but I wouldn't test it out for too long.
I'm just trying to imagine in my home having an issue with chocolates lasting more than a few days. I can't really imagine it.
So true.
Maybe one day freezing them, that would be awesome. What country do white chocolate beans come from?
Actually, white chocolate beans, I don't think there is such a thing. I think it's chocolate beans. I think it's actually not made with a bean. Now, I don't know all the facts between white chocolate, but I know it's not something that I ever work with because it's not an organic, it's more of a processed chocolate. So that's not something I'm involved in. So I would actually do a search on that. And I will do a search after our conversation tonight because I'm now curious myself, but I don't work with white chocolate at all.
And I'm seeing in the chat, actually, someone's chiming in that white chocolate's made from the fat of the cacao bean with sugar and milk, usually.
I think that that's true, but I think most of the time it's made, I've never seen a vegan white chocolate. And that's not to say this it's not out there, but I've never seen it. So maybe that's why I'm not so keen on cooking with something that's a white chocolate. But I love that insight. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks, Larlin. Question again about the making of it. Is it important to stir during the countertop part of tempering?
Yes, it is. Because you want to bring down the temperature. And the best way to do it is by keep stirring it. You're letting air circulate into the chocolate.
Excellent. Do you ever use frozen or dried blueberries?
I don't use frozen blueberries because they would add moisture into the content. And one of the important things is, like, even when you're making your fresh blueberries, to make sure they're completely dry, because you do want them to be able to be completely dry because it's the moisture from the blueberry that can taint the chocolate and cause it to not become tempered. So I try to use everything very dried. So even like all the fruits that I chop up, they're always freeze dried and they're, organic wherever possible. But I would really probably use a fresh fruit and cut it up.
Cool, thank you. Looks like we have a couple of questions about you and Sweet Vegan. So how did you decide to go into chocolate specifically?
It's a great question. I was a vegan chef and I worked for some families in New York City, some celebrity families actually. And one of the things I always got asked for was vegan chocolate. So I searched the world over and I could not find a vegan chocolate that was soy-free, nut-free, gluten-free, and also white sugar-free. So I started developing my own recipes. And it was just one thing led to another. And I started getting rave reviews on all these amazing chocolates. And then with a background in design and not sure where my next career was going to go, I had this opportunity to really develop a company. And I thought to myself, what company would I really like to change the world with? And the answer was chocolate. I love it myself. I love sharing it, and it brings so much joy. So that's one reason I got into chocolate making. And I think it's made a huge difference. And it's something that just warms my heart all the time. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. That's what an interesting path. That's very cool. As a business, how do you do anything to support the community?
Another great question. Well, this little thing called COVID happened. And up until that point, my company was definitely going in a positive upward direction. And with COVID, I really had to rethink what the future would be for Sweet Vegan and for myself. And I really, at that point, really began to understand how many people were suffering out there. And in particular, all the first responders that we have in our world. And in particular, New York at that point was getting really hard hit with COVID. So I developed a game plan for myself to reach out to the world, but in particular, the world of New York, and ask people if they would like to share a story and nominate someone that had been affected by COVID. Maybe a doctor, a nurse, someone with the EMS, or just a favorite family person. So I got amazing responses, and I started a blog. And I actually physically made over 1,000 pieces of chocolates, and I gave them all around the 5 boroughs to hospitals, all kinds of facilities, the fire departments. And I got so many great responses that actually Yahoo Finance did an amazing story on how a small chocolatier in New York City can make a huge difference in the world. And I think it gave a lot of hope to people. And I hope that maybe some of you would like to read that article and see what a difference you can make in the world by doing something and sharing something that is your passion and joy, like mine is with chocolate. So thank you for that amazing question.
Thank you for doing that. What a service. I think last question, do you have a favorite chocolate?
Oh, that's always a tough question to ask. And I think that's a little tough because, believe it or not, it's like choosing your favorite child. But I'll tell you the honest truth is that I have developed now seasonal flavored chocolates. So I have 4 different flavors every single season. So right now we're into springtime, or hopefully close to springtime. And I would say my favorite flavor in the springtime box is my strawberry satisfaction. So that would be my spring collection. And then for the summer, I think my favorite might be my orange blossom. And that's always a crowd pleaser. In the fall, for fall flavors, I would say my favorite is definitely pumpkin. I get a lot of rave reviews on pumpkin, and it's also one of my all-time favorites. And then for winter, when we go into winter, I really love, it's a tie between peppermint persuasion, and also another favorite is definitely my pomegranate power, which just has an amazing flavor to it. So thank you for that question. And I hope you all will have a chance to try some of my chocolates. We're going to be offering everyone a 10% discount if you order through Sweet Vegan. And I think we have a discount code called VClass10 when you purchase something at checkout. And of course, some lucky person this evening is going to be getting a gift certificate from Sweet Vegan. Right, Jacqueline?
Yes, let me do that right now. Putting in my random sort of registrants. Hang on. All right. Heather Garcia is the lucky person who will be winning a $25 gift card. Heather, if you can email me, if you respond to the registration email, with your information. I will get you all set up.
Well,
Thank
thank you, Heather. I'm so glad you're the lucky winner. This is one of my boxes that you'll be able to order online. So I can't wait for you to try them and let me know what you think.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this. And we are lucky that you're allowing us to record. I know that we have a bunch of people who had something come up this afternoon, but would love to watch later this week. So thank you very much. And I look forward to tasting your chocolate sometime soon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I will be sending you an email with a survey that we ask if you could fill out for Chef Andrea. And I'll include the discount code as well. Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and evening. Take care.